Hello and welcome to Inside of Blackpool. In this video we'll take a virtual pub tour in the town centre. We'll be starting off at the Brew Room, which is located just near the Winter Gardens, before heading along Topping Street and then down Talbot Road towards the sea and North Pier. We'll end up in the Little Black Pug bar, which is located on Talbot Square. Unfortunately, due to COVID restrictions, we would not be able to go into any of the pubs which we're featuring in this video, basically because they're closed. But we will try and explain a little bit about them and hopefully give you a sense of what it would be like if you were to visit. And it should give you a little bit of a feel as to what this area or section of town has to offer in terms of pubs, and maybe inspire you to visit at least one or two on your next visit, or if you're local, your next night out. Hope you enjoy. So, without further ado, let's take a look at that first pub we mentioned. This is the Brew Room. You could probably do a video on the Brew Room alone. But in summary, it's an independently owned pub which hosts an on-site brewery. The pub is actually the location of where Blackpool Football Club was formed, and it hosts some real fires, real ales and real people, along with some pretty decent bar food. The hot dogs especially are excellent. The pub is versatile. It's good for groups as it is for couples or families, and it has a very welcoming atmosphere, yet doesn't have that local pub for local people type feel which it could quite easily get. Previous names for the pub have been the Stanley Arms and the Blue Room, but a few years ago it was taken by a local family who have, to be fair, done a great job with the place and given its current name, the Brew Room. Next up, and just round the corner from the Brew Room on Topping Street, is a bar called the Townsman. Opened in 2010, the Townsman hasn't been as established as long as some of the other pubs which we'll pass by on this pub run. However, in that time it has managed to acquire a decent local following. It is more of a locals pub than a tourist haunt. In terms of facilities, it's pretty standard as far as your pubs go. It's a typical wet pub, doesn't serve food except your general bar snacks. But what it does have is an excellent beer garden out the back. So if you're in town on a sunny day and fancy bobbing in for a couple, it's definitely a good option in town centre. Almost directly across the road from the Townsman is our next stop, and that's Champ's Sports Bar. Owned by the same guy who owns the Markellas in town, Champ's Sports Bar is a fab sports bar. It offers sport on numerous televisions located throughout the bar. The sports memorabilia on the walls for you to look at. Downstairs, pool table, darts board. Then if you go onto the first floor, there's a couple of snooker tables, along with a bit of a balcony where people can smoke. It's a wet pub, so it doesn't offer any meals as such, just your usual bar snacks. Prices are reasonable, and service, like in any Markellas, is pretty good, so definitely one worth stopping by. And next up, within spitting distance of Champ's Sports Bar, is Churchills. Churchills is the first pub on this pub run which hosts karaoke. So if that's your thing, either taking part or watching, then this is definitely a pub for you. There's never a shortage of people queuing to get up and do a number. We've got to say that the talent in there, it varies quite dramatically. You get some that are semi-professional, then you get others that what they lack in terms of singing ability, they certainly make up for in terms of volume. Next up, and the last one we're visiting along Topping Street, is a pub called The Washington. The Washington is a very popular pub. Once upon a time it was a popular starting point for the town students before they head off into town to some of the more lively places, should we say. Today it's a bit calmer and the staunch student following has moved elsewhere. The pub is a Green King pub, so if you know that chain you'll know exactly what to expect. It's got your usual standard beers on, with a few guest ales, cheap and cheerful menu, and sports on a big screen. It's a safe pair of hands, consistent and predictable. It does sport a pool table and a dartboard in a slightly segregated area, so if you fancy a game of killer and the area is free, then go grab it. Next up, and our first pub on Talbot Road, is Markeller's North. If you've seen any of our other pub run videos, then Markeller's needs no introduction. They're littered across the town. Markeller's are massively popular, and rightly so. They have 7 acts on stage, which alternate between the various venues, and that happens 7 days a week. They also feature DJs and karaoke in between acts, so you can hit the dance floor, and yeah, even if that's 1 PM on a Monday afternoon. Pub run wise, they are ideal for letting your hair down a bit. They offer something a bit different than your standard spit and sawdust type boozers. The bar service, pretty decent, as with all Markeller's, and it's got a very welcoming, non-clicky atmosphere that works really well. It's located near Blackpool North Station, so it's an ideal stop off for a pint after you get off a train. But you may end up staying there, so we'll warn about that. Next up, just a short hop down the road from Markeller's North, is a little pub called Victoria, or also known as Whittle Springs. So, as mentioned, the Victoria is one of the smallest pubs in Blackpool. Not the smallest, we might add, but it is pretty small. It does get very busy, so if you're going in the evening, then beware of maybe a little bit of a queue, and a bit of a queue to get to the bar, etc. But afternoons, yeah, you'll be able to walk in, and there won't be that many people in. Other than that, it doesn't do food, but it does all your mainstream drinks that you'd expect, all reasonably priced. Good service, so it's a decent place to stop off on a pub run. So just a little bit further down Talbot Road towards the sea is our next pub. It's our first Irish pub. It's called Molloys. Molloys is a decent sized pub for a town centre. It's part of a Stonegate chain, if you know that. They own Yates's and others. It serves foods and your usual suspect drinks, which you can enjoy while watching the big screens, playing darts, pool, or if you still have it, even giant Jenga. Clientele wise, it's fairly mixed actually. It's open all year, so it's got enough of a local following to keep it going out of season. But then during the season, yeah, I would say it's mainly tourist driven. It does have live music on some nights and days, which is always a draw and attracts a fairly big crowd. So, all in all, a fairly standard pub. We'd nip in for a pint if we wanted to be pretty sure we're getting a seat because of the size of the place. Or we have been in a few times when there's been a band on. We'd probably also nip in on a pub run. And from Molloys, we head down Talbot Road towards the North Pier or Sea to the final pub in this tour. It's a relatively new one called the Little Black Pug. The Little Black Pug is in a schoolhouse which is just by the Sacred Heart Church. That's on Talbot Square, which is just by the North Pier. It's a lovely building and adds a bit of class to the centre compared to a lot of the pubs which you'd find around, say, down Queen Street, etc. Grab a pew, grab a pint, and listen to the fab DJ playing his tunes. They play a variety of music in the bar with themed days and nights. We've been in there, we saw Lionel Vinyl, who was playing all his 70s classic hits, and we've also been in when there's been Northern Soul dancers all doing their thing. As mentioned, it's fairly new, so it doesn't have a die-hard local following that you get in some pubs, but it also doesn't have that impersonal feeling that you get in some of the mainstream tourist pubs. So it's got a nice balance in there. And added to that, it's in a brilliant location, especially to finish a pub run, being bang in the centre. If you wanted to continue, then turn left, turn right. There's plenty of pubs around this area that you can have your next pint in. So a big thank you for watching. I hope you've enjoyed joining us on this virtual pub run, especially in these COVID times where we're not actually able to go in them. So I hope it's given you a bit of a taste of what you can enjoy when times get better. If you did enjoy this video, then please give us a like, subscribe, and maybe give us a comment, and we'll get back to you. Thanks a lot.